Greetings, seekers of myth and mystery. Today, we embark on a journey into the ancient realms of the North, where gods, giants, and men are bound by fate, courage, and sacrifice. This is not merely a tale, but a quest, an eternal pursuit of knowledge, power, and wisdom that shaped the destiny of the All-Father himself, Odin. In this story, you will witness Odin's restless search for truth, a path carved through sacrifice, challenge, and unshakable will. From the halls of Asgard to the roots of Yggdrasil, from the whispers of giants to the silence of the runes, each step of Odin's journey reveals the cost of wisdom and the weight of leadership. You will meet gods and creatures of legend, each playing their role in the great tapestry of fate. Battles will be fought, secrets unveiled, and sacrifices made, not for glory, but for knowledge that transcends time itself. So prepare yourself, traveler. Open your mind, open your heart, and join me as we follow the All-Father on his sacred journey. This is the saga of Odin's quest for wisdom in the high halls of Asgard, beneath the golden roof of Valaskja. L.F. Odin sat upon his throne, Hlidskjalf, gazing far and wide across the 9 realms. Though his reign was strong and his people secure, a deep unease stirred within him. Power alone could not guard the future. Strength of arms could not shatter fate. He felt a gnawing hunger in his soul, a hunger not for gold or conquest, but for wisdom, the rarest treasure of all. The All-Father single eye, sharp as the storm, swept across Midgard, Jotunheim, and beyond, searching for answers that were not yet his. He knew that knowledge was hidden in places perilous and forbidden, secrets locked away by giants, whispered by spirits of the dead, and carved into the very roots of the cosmos. Odin rose from his throne, his ravens Huginn and Muninn fluttering to his shoulders, whispering thoughts and memories into his ear. Geri and Freki, his loyal wolves, stirred at his feet. Yet even with such loyal companions, Odin felt the burden of solitude. For wisdom, true wisdom, could not be shared freely. It had to be won, often at great cost. Thus began the restlessness that would drive him beyond Asgard's shining walls, through mist and shadow, across realms both wondrous and dreadful. Odin resolved that he would pay whatever price the fates demanded, if only he could pierce the veil of destiny. The first step of his long and perilous quest had begun far beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, where the great tree touches the well of Erd. 3 sisters sat in time. They were the Norns, Erd, Verdandi, and Skuld, the weavers of fate. With hands both gentle and unyielding, they carved runes into the bark of the world tree and watered its roots with the sacred waters that shaped destiny itself. Odin, restless and unsatisfied, descended from Asgard to seek them. The path was shrouded in mist and shadow, but he pressed on, guided by the whispers of his ravens. He knew that if any could reveal the path to wisdom, it would be the Norns. The sisters greeted him not as a king, nor even as a god, but as a seeker. Their eyes pierced him, as if he were no more than a fleeting shadow upon the loom of eternity. Erd spoke first, her voice heavy with memory. "What was, you already know." Verdandi followed, her tone flowing like the river of the present. "What is, you see before you." And then came Skuld, whose voice carried the chill of inevitability. "What shall be is written, but not given freely." They told him that wisdom greater than any god possessed lay hidden. But to claim it, he must pay a sacrifice more terrible than he could yet imagine. Knowledge would demand not only his flesh and blood, but his very soul. Odin bowed his head, for he understood. To walk the path of wisdom was to surrender to fate itself. The Norns offered no comfort, only the truth. Yet in their cryptic words, Odin found his resolve sharpened. The price would be high, but he would pay it from the halls of Asgard. Odin set forth upon a path few dared tread. His steps carried him beyond the shining walls of the gods, we to Atuel, Shereeds, down into the shadowed lands where the roots of Yggdrasil burrowed deep. The great tree, whose branches stretched across all 9 realms, was more than wood and bark. It was the very spine of existence, and its roots drank from wells of mystery and power. The All-Father paused before the colossal roots, each thicker than a mountain, wrapped in shimmering runes that pulsed with hidden energy. The air was heavy with the whispers of spirits, voices of those long gone, bound to the fate woven into the tree. His ravens circled overhead, uneasy, while his wolves remained at the edge, unwilling to follow. Here, Odin felt the immensity of what he sought, for to know wisdom was not merely to hold knowledge. It was to touch the essence of life, death and fate itself. He placed his hand upon the bark, and the runes flared in answer, testing his spirit. The pain of visions seared his mind. He saw giants clashing with gods, serpents stirring beneath oceans, wolves snapping at the sun and moon. Though shaken, Odin did not withdraw. He knew the path to wisdom would wound him again and again, but he would endure. The roots of Yggdrasil revealed only a glimpse of destiny, enough to warn him, but not enough to satisfy his. Ahead lay the well of Mimir, and the true beginning of his sacrifice. At the deepest root of Yggdrasil lay the well of Mímir, shimmering with waters older than gods themselves. The well was guarded by Mimir, an ancient being whose knowledge stretched from the birth of the cosmos to the shadows of its end. His face was weathered, his gaze sharp and unyielding, as though he carried the burden of every secret he knew. Odin approached, staff in hand, cloak trailing through the mist. The All-Father bowed his head, for he recognized the power that dwelled here. "Wise Mimir," he said, "I have come for the drink that grants true understanding." Limir's eyes glimmered, his voice deep as the roots of the earth. "The water of wisdom is not freely given, All-Father. It demands a sacrifice. To see what cannot be unseen, to know what cannot be forgotten, you must give that which you hold most precious." The well rippled as though echoing his words. Odin's heart grew heavy, for he understood. Knowledge demanded loss. Wisdom demanded pain. Yet his resolve did not falter. Mimir gestured to the water, silent and waiting. The price would be Odin's eye. The silence between them deepened as Odin gazed into the shimmering waters of Mimir's well. His reflection stared back, 2 piercing eyes, one filled with determination, the other trembling with the knowledge of what must be done. The price of wisdom was steep, but the All-Father had already chosen his path. With steady hands, Odin drew his knife. His ravens screeched in protest, circling frantically, and his wolves growled low, sensing the coming pain. Yet Odin silenced them with a glance. "For wisdom all must be given," he whispered. In one swift motion, he plucked out his eye and cast it into the well. The water rippled, glowing brighter as if drinking in the sacrifice. Mimir's gaze softened, for he knew the depth of what Odin had surrendered. Agony consumed the All-Father, but within that agony bloomed vision. The waters shimmered with endless knowledge, visions of the past, the present, and futures yet to come. He saw the birth of the cosmos, the rise of gods, and the shadow of their inevitable doom. His sacrifice had been accepted. When Odin lifted his head, one eye remained, blazing like a storm. He no longer looked upon the world as before. Now he saw deeper beyond flesh into the heart of truth itself. Wisdom was his, but so too was the burden it carried. Transformed by sacrifice, Odin cloaked himself in the guise of a wanderer. No longer the shining king of Asgard, he walked among mortals and giants as a gray-bearded traveler, wearing a wide-brimmed hat to shadow his single burning eye. His staff struck the ground in measured rhythm, a sound that carried like a heartbeat across the realms. He wandered through Midgard's villages, listening to the songs of men and the laments of warriors. He walked the desolate wastes of Jotunheim, where the frost winds whispered forgotten truths. He crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and spoke to spirits that lingered in mist and stone. Everywhere he went, he gathered fragments of wisdom, piecing together the hidden truths of existence. Yet his path was not without danger. Some mocked him as a beggar. Others, sensing the power that clung to him, grew fearful or hostile. Still, Odin pressed on, for he knew the guise of weakness often shielded the pursuit of strength. Through this wandering, he took on the role of a shaman, between worlds, never wholly of one place. He sought not just knowledge of gods, but the truths of mortals, the whispers of giants, and the counsel of spirits. Every step brought him closer to the great confrontation of thought and word, the contest with the giant Vafthrudnir. At last, Odin came to the hall of Vafthrudnir, the wisest of the frost giants. Legends whispered that none had bested him in riddles, for his knowledge spanned the birth of the cosmos and the secrets of the realms. Odin, in his wanderer-esque guise, entered the hall and bowed respectfully. "Stranger," rumbled Vafthrudnir, his voice like grinding stone, "why do you trespass in my dwelling?" "I seek knowledge," Odin replied calmly, "and I offer my life as the wager. If I fail to answer your riddles, you may claim me as forfeit. But if I succeed, your wisdom shall be mine." The giant's eyes gleamed with amusement. Few dared challenge him so boldly. They sat across from one another, firelight casting long shadows, and the contest began. Vafthrudnir asked of the sun and moon, of the creation of the gods, of the fates of giants yet unborn. Odin answered each, his words precise, his mind sharpened by sacrifice. The giant leaned forward, impressed but relentless, weaving ever more difficult questions. Still, Odin matched him riddle for riddle, truth for truth. At last, Odin asked his own question, one only he could know. What did Odin whisper into the ear of his son Baldur before he was placed upon the pyre? Vafthrudnir's face paled. The hall fell silent. For the first time, the giant could not answer. He knew then the truth. His guest was Odin himself, the All-Father. The giant bowed his head, conceding defeat. Among the treasures most coveted in all the 9 realms was the mead of poetry, a drink brewed from the blood of Kvasir, the wisest being ever born. Whoever drank of it gained not only eloquence and song, but the power to speak truths that stirred gods and men alike. Yet the mead was not free. It was guarded deep in the halls of the giant Suttungr, who had seized it through cunning and violence. Odin, hearing of this mead, resolved that it must belong to the gods, not hoarded by giants. In the guise of a wanderer, he journeyed across perilous lands to Suttungr's dwelling. There he observed from a distance, watching how the mead was kept in 3 great vessels, Pothrir, Bothn, and Sofnen. But gaining the mead would not be simple. Suttungr guarded it fiercely, and his daughter Gunnlod watched over it in a hidden chamber beneath the mountain. Odin knew he would need more than strength to succeed. He would need charm, wit, and patience. So the All-Father devised his plan, shaping himself into guises and weaving schemes that only he could master. For wisdom and poetry were worth any risk, and Odin would stop at nothing to seize them. Disguised as a weary laborer, Odin approached the halls of Suttungr's brother, Baugi, with clever words and promises of work. Odin, calling himself Bölverkr, The evildoer offered to toil in exchange for a single favor. Intrigued, Baugi agreed, and Odin labored mightily, felling trees and splitting stone with a strength no mortal could match. When his work was complete, Odin pressed Baugi to keep his bargain, help him reach the mead of poetry. Reluctantly, Baugi agreed. Together they approached the mountain where Suttungr had hidden the mead. With his auger, Baugi bored a hole into the rock, but when he hesitated, Odin revealed his cunning. Transforming into a serpent, he slipped through the tiny opening and vanished into the heart of the mountain. There, Odin found Gunnlod, daughter of Suttungr, sitting in solemn vigil before the vessels of mead. Her beauty was striking, her gaze sorrowful, for she was bound to her duty. Odin, ever cunning, softened his voice and spoke to her with gentleness, offering companionship and warmth. Over 3 nights, he won her trust, her love, and her promise. In return, she allowed him to drink of the mead. Odin drank deeply from Othrir, Bothen, and Soen, draining them of their sacred contents. The mead flowed through him, filling him with divine inspiration. The moment his thirst was quenched, he prepared to escape, for Suttungr would soon discover the theft. The moment Odin finished the mead, the mountain trembled with fury. Suttungr had discovered the theft. His roar shook the halls as he gave chase, determined to destroy the thief who had stolen what was his. But Odin was already transforming. Shifting into the shape of a great eagle, he spread his mighty wings and surged into the sky, clutching the mead within him. His feathers glistened in the sunlight as he soared, the air rippling with the power of his flight. Behind him, Suttungr too became an eagle, vast and terrible, his wings blotting out the light. The chase tore across the 9 realms, mountain peaks crumbling and forests bending in the wake of their pursuit. At last, Odin neared Asgard. The gods had prepared vessels to receive the mead, and as he swept over the walls, he spat it forth, filling the waiting jars. Most was safely gathered, but some was lost, scattered across Midgard, becoming the gift of poetry granted even to mortals. Suttungr, exhausted and defeated, faltered and fell back. Odin returned to his true form, standing triumphant in Asgard. The mead of poetry was now in the hands of the gods, and Odin had secured another treasure of wisdom, though through cunning and deception, rather than sacrifice. Though Odin had won much, runes, riddles, and the mead of poetry, his hunger for wisdom was not yet satisfied, for there remained one source of knowledge untouched by gods, the dead. To uncover what fate held for him and his kin, Odin resolved to descend into Helheim, the cold and shadowed realm of those who had not died in battle. The journey was perilous. He crossed Jul Bridge, guarded by the maiden Mothguthar, whose piercing eyes demanded his purpose. "Why do you trespass in the land of the dead, wanderer?" she asked. Odin, cloaked and one-eyed, answered, "I seek only words, not war." She let him pass, but warned that Helheim offers no mercy. The air grew colder as he walked, the walls of the realm looming around him, steep cliffs and icy winds clawing at his cloak. Spirits drifted through the gloom, whispering half-formed cries of longing. Yet Odin pressed forward, each step an act of will. In the heart of Helheim, he sought a grave untouched by time, the resting place of a Vöse-Liva, a seeress, whose wisdom rivaled even the Norns. Odin knew she alone could speak of the fates to come, though summoning her would demand necromancy, an art feared even by gods. At last Odin found the mound, an ancient burial site hidden deep within Helheim. It was here that a Vöse-Liva, a woman of great foresight, had been laid to rest long ago. Her bones were cloaked in shadows, her spirit bound in silence. Yet Odin, desperate for knowledge, began the dark ritual to summon her. He carved runes into the earth, chanting words of old magic. The ground trembled. The air grew heavy, and a cold mist rose from the grave. Slowly, the spirit of the Völva stirred, her hollow eyes glowing faintly as she gazed upon Odin. "Why do you disturb me, all father?" she hissed, her voice like whined through the grave. "The living are not welcome among the dead. I seek what only you can tell." Odin answered firmly. "Reveal to me the truths hidden from the living, the fate of the gods, the doom that approaches." The Fosiliva laughed bitterly, her voice echoing through the shadows. "You ask for what you will not wish to know. Yet, because you have bound me, I must speak." Her words would soon unveil what even Odin dreaded, the prophecy of Ragnarok. The Fosiliva's hollow voice filled the air, heavy with dread. "Hear me, Odin, for I see what the fates have woven. The golden age of the gods shall not endure. The wolf shall break its chains. The serpent shall rise from the sea. Fire and shadow shall consume the heavens. This is Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods." Odin's heart grew heavy. As visions flooded before him, he saw Fenrir, jaws stretched wide, devouring the sun. He saw Jormungandr, the world serpent, rising from the deep, spilling venom into the skies. He saw the ships of the dead sailing from Helheim, led by Loki the trickster, turned enemy of gods. The Fosiliva continued, her words unyielding. "The earth shall tremble, the heavens shall split, many gods shall fall. And you, O Father, you shall meet the wolf, and he shall end you." Silence followed. Even Odin, who had sacrificed eye and blood for wisdom, felt the chill of fear pierce him. Yet within him resolve grew stronger. If fate was fixed, then he would face it with courage. If doom was inevitable, then wisdom would be his weapon. The Fosiliva's loveless spirit faded, her task complete. "I have spoken. Now let me rest." She vanished into mist, leaving Odin alone among the shadows of Helheim. He turned back toward the living realms, carrying not comfort, but the weight of prophecy. For though he had sought wisdom, what he gained was dread, and the knowledge that every step he took from now on would lead him closer to the end. From the words of the Fosiliva, Odin knew the great wolf Fenrir was destined to break free and bring ruin to the gods. Yet he also knew fate could not be fully undone, only delayed. Thus, Odin resolved to bind the beast while it was still young, before its strength grew too great. Fenrir was no ordinary wolf. Born of Loki and the giantess Angrboda, his jaws could swallow armies, and his strength grew daily. The gods, uneasy at his power, pretended to raise him in Asgard, keeping him near but always watched. Only Tyr, god of war and justice, dared feed him, for Fenrir trusted no other hand. The gods first forged chains of iron, but Fenrir snapped them like twigs. They made stronger chains, thick as mountains, yet he shattered them with ease. Odin then turned to the dwarves, the greatest smiths of the realms. From the roots of mountains, the beard of a woman, the sound of a cat's footsteps, and other impossibilities, they crafted Gleipnir, a ribbon thin as silk but unbreakable. The gods tricked Fenrir into testing the ribbon, swearing oaths of safety. Suspicious, the wolf demanded that one god place his hand in his jaws as a pledge of honor. Only Tyr, brave and true, stepped forward. When Fenrir discovered the deceit, he snapped Tyr's hand away. But Gleipnir held firm. Bound and howling, Fenrir lay chained, and Odin looked upon him with grim sorrow. The wolf was secured, yet the prophecy still lingered. For bonds, like fate, may one day break. The cries of Fenrir echoed across the realms. a reminder that every victory carried a cost. Tyr's hand, lost to the wolf's bite, became a symbol among the gods that wisdom and safety were never won without blood. Odin pondered this truth deeply. He had given his own eye to Mimir's well, hung himself upon Yggdrasil for runes, and now watched his son in spirit, Tyr, bleed for the safety of Asgard. The lesson grew clearer with each trial. Knowledge demanded pain. Sacrifice was the bridge to wisdom. In the silent hours of night, Odin sat alone, ravens perched upon his shoulders, wolves at his side. He considered the sacrifices yet to come. Would more of his kin bleed for the safety of gods and men? Would his own blood be the final price? The words of the Versaleva haunted him. You shall meet the wolf, and he shall end you. And yet Odin did not. Instead, he resolved that every sacrifice, every drop of blood, would not be wasted. It would prepare the gods for what was to come. He gathered the Aesir and spoke to them. Sacrifice is not loss. It is the seed of survival. Tyr's courage, my pain, your struggles, these shall forge us stronger than fate itself. Though his voice was steady, Odin knew the truth in his heart. Sacrifice could not avert Ragnarok, but it could shape how they would face it. With wisdom, with courage, and with unyielding will, though Odin had gained wisdom from Mimir's well, the Norns, and even the dead, he sensed there was still a deeper mystery waiting to be revealed. The runes. These symbols of power were not merely marks upon wood or stone, but the very essence of magic, fate, and creation itself. To master them, one had to endure the most terrible of trials. Odin knew what must be done. He would sacrifice himself to himself. With solemn resolve, he journeyed to Yggdrasil, the world tree that held the 9 realms in its branches. At its towering trunk, he thrust his own spear into his body, the weapon piercing through flesh and spirit alike. He then commanded the gods not to aid him. Alone, he hung from the great tree, swaying between life and death. His cloak fluttered in the cold wind, his single eye burning as he gazed into the void. The branches groaned under his weight, and the roots whispered to him, but no comfort came. Thus began Odin's greatest ordeal. Neither wholly alive nor truly dead, a sacrifice to himself, seeking the runes that only suffering could unlock. For 9 nights and 9 days, Odin hung suspended between the realms. He had no bread to eat, no mead to drink, only the searing pain of his wound, and the cold winds tearing at his body. His ravens circled helplessly, but he forbade them to bring him aid. The gods watched from afar, sorrowful, yet bound by his command. Visions tore through his mind. He saw the birth of worlds from fire and ice, the forging of mountains and seas, the laughter of giants, and the weeping of gods. He saw death, rebirth, and death again, in endless cycles. Each vision was a flame burning away his flesh, searing his spirit bare. On the 5th night, he began to hear whispers, not from gods or spirits, but from the void itself. On the 7th, he no longer felt his body, only his soul suspended in nothingness. By the 9th, he hovered at the edge of death, his spirit ready to break free. Yet Odin did not surrender. His agony became his focus, his sacrifice, his strength. At last, in the silence of the 9th night, the runes revealed themselves, shining symbols etched into the fabric of existence, calling to him like stars in the void. As the 9th night ended, the runes blazed before Odin's eye, symbols of fate, magic, and power carved into the very fabric of the cosmos. Each rune pulsed with meaning, alive with secrets, charms to heal, to bind, to protect, to slay, and to command. Odin reached out, not with his hand, but with his spirit. The runes answered, flowing into him, carving themselves upon his mind. In that moment, he became more than king, more than wanderer. He became a master of the hidden language that shapes the world. With a final gasp, Odin fell from Yggdrasil. His body struck the earth, lifeless for a heartbeat. Then breath returned. Then he had died, and he had been reborn. Rising, Odin lifted his staff and inscribed runes upon the ground. They glowed with power, their strength undeniable. He had won not just knowledge, but the very tools of creation and destruction. Yet the lesson was clear: wisdom never comes freely. The runes had not been granted. They had been earned through death, sacrifice, and unrelenting will. Odin bore the scars, but within those scars lay power beyond measure. From that day forward, the All-Father was not only the seeker of wisdom, but its keeper, and the runes, his eternal gift and burden. Having won the runes, Odin discovered that their true power was not only in their form, but in their voice. Each rune held a secret song, a chant that could awaken its hidden strength. And so, beneath the shadow of Yggdrasil, the All-Father began to sing. His voice was low at first, trembling from his ordeal. But as the words took shape, the air around him stirred. He sang the first rune, and wounds closed. He sang the second, and fetters fell away. He sang the third, and fire bowed to his will. Each song was a key, unlocking a force of the cosmos. 9 powerful songs revealed themselves to him, charms of healing, charms of protection, charms of victory, charms that turned aside weapons, charms that silenced enemies. The runes became not mere symbols, but living forces, bound to his will through word and breath. The ravens cried in awe, circling above him. Even the wolves grew still, ears pricked, as if they too understood. Odin's chants echoed through the roots of the world, filling the 9 realms with a resonance none could ignore. Yet Odin knew these songs were not weapons alone. They were tools of wisdom, meant to guide as much as to conquer, to protect as much as to strike. In them, he saw the balance of power and wisdom, one are empty without the other. When the chants faded, silence fell upon the roots of Yggdrasil. Odin lowered his staff and bowed his head. He had endured torment, death, and rebirth. He had gained power, yet what lingered most in his heart was not triumph, but understanding. Sacrifice was not an end, it was a bridge. From his lost eye came visions of fate. From his broken body came the gift of the runes. From Tyr's severed hand came the safety of Asgard. Every gift worth holding had been bought with pain. The gods, seeing Odin return from Yggdrasil, gathered around him. Some marveled at the runes, others feared their power. But Odin spoke plainly. These songs, these runes, are not for conquest alone. They are for healing, for guiding, for surviving what is to come. Remember, it is not in strength that we endure. It is in wisdom, and wisdom is forged in sacrifice. The Aesir fell silent, humbled by his words, for they knew Odin bore scars not only for himself, but for them all. Alone that night, Odin gazed into the stars. He knew that every sacrifice, every loss was leading him toward Ragnarok, yet he felt no regret. His scars were proof of his will, his wisdom, and his unyielding resolve. The All-Father had learned the deepest truth. Wisdom without sacrifice is hollow, and sacrifice without wisdom is wasted. Together, they were the essence of destiny. Not long after Odin's return from Yggdrasil, Loki approached him. The trickster god, ever shifting between ally and foe, carried words like blades, sharp, glittering, and dangerous. "Odin," Loki whispered, "you peer into the depths of fate, but do you truly see? The runes sing to you, yet even they hide secrets. The giants plot, the gods grow restless, and shadows lengthen. Can you trust what you know, or are you blind with only one eye? Odin studied him in silence. He knew Loki's tongue could weave truth and lies together, so tightly that even the wise struggled to separate them. Yet he also knew that within Loki's words often lay hidden truths, veiled in mockery. Loki smiled, sly and serpentine. Beware, All-Father. Wisdom is a gift, but it can also be a curse. You see doom, yet what have you done to stop it? Perhaps your sacrifices were not enough. Or perhaps, he leaned closer, eyes gleaming with fire. You only hastened it. Then he was gone, laughter echoing like a crack in the air. Odin's heart stirred uneasily. Loki's words gnawed at him, not because he trusted them, but because he feared they carried fragments of truth. Not long after Loki's whispers, calamity struck. Idun, keeper of the golden apples of youth, vanished from Asgard. Without her fruits, the gods began to wither, their strength fading. Wrinkles crept upon once radiant faces, and vigor drained from their limbs. Panic spread through the halls of Asgard. Odin demanded answers, and all eyes turned to Loki, who had been last seen with Idun. At first, Loki swore innocence, but beneath Odin's burning gaze, the trickster faltered. At last he confessed. He had lured Idun from Asgard with false promises, and delivered her into the hands of the giant Thjazi. Fury erupted. Thor raised his hammer, ready to strike Loki down. But Odin stayed his hand. If you caused this, you shall also mend it. Bring Idun back, or face judgment. Cornered, Loki transformed into a falcon and flew across the realms. He found Thjazi's hall, where Idun was kept in the form of a nut, locked away. With cunning, Loki seized her, carrying her in his talons as he sped back toward Asgard. But Thjazi gave chase, wings beating like thunder. As he pursued in the form of a giant eagle, the skies roared with their flight until, at the very gates of Asgard, the gods raised flames that consumed Thjazi's wings. The giant fell, and Loki delivered Idun back to safety. The gods regained their youth, but Odin's mind remained troubled. Even in triumph, Loki's betrayal had brought them close to ruin. In the days that followed, Odin's dreams grew restless. Night after night, visions of his beloved son Balder filled his mind. Balder, radiant and pure, walked in fields of light, yet shadows stretched ever closer, and a spear pierced his flawless breast. Disturbed, Odin sought answers. He traveled to Frigg, Balder's mother, who wept at the same visions. She had already gone to every creature, stone, plant, and beast in the 9 realms, demanding oaths that none should harm her son. And all swore, save for a single small thing, the mistletoe. Too young and fragile, it was overlooked. Still, Odin's unease deepened. He gazed into Balder's eyes and saw not life's joy, but death's shadow. The prophecy of Ragnarok whispered in his mind. The death of Balder would be the first sign that the end was near. In the halls of Asgard, the gods made sport of Balder's invulnerability, casting stones, spears, and blades at him, all of which turned aside harmlessly. Laughter filled the air, yet Odin did not laugh. His eye burned with sorrow, for he knew such games mocked the very fate they could not escape. Though Balder smiled, Odin's heart grew heavy, for he understood no oath, no charm, no power could avert destiny. And Balder's light, though strong, would not endure. Though the gods laughed in the halls of Asgard, Odin's heart carried only dread. His dreams of Balder's death would not fade, and the shadows of prophecy pressed ever heavier upon him. To find the truth, he turned once again to the realm of the dead. With cloak and staff, he journeyed beyond the lands of men and into the icy wastes that led to Hel's domain. Way, the path was bleak, lined with pale spirits wandering without rest. Crossing the dull bridge once more, he passed beneath Mothin Guthrus' watchful eyes. This time, she did not question him. She knew he came seeking fate, not glory. Helheim was colder than he remembered, its halls vast and silent, its gates guarded by the hound Garmr, whose growl echoed like thunder. Yet even Garmr did not halt him, for Odin's presence commanded both awe and fear. In the deepest chamber, Odin found Hel herself, the daughter of Loki, half beautiful, half decayed, seated upon her throne of shadow. Her eyes gleamed with the calm certainty of one who holds the keys to every end. "I have come for my son," Odin said. "Tell me of Baldur's fate. Can it be averted?" Hel's lips curved into a smile, cold as winter. "Baldur has already set foot upon my road." "Oh, father." "Nothing you do will change it." Odin's voice trembled, though his bearing did not. "If there is any hope, speak it, Queen of Shadows." "Tell me how Baldur might be spared." Hel regarded him with quiet amusement. "Your son is beloved all." "Father, when he comes to me, I shall grant him a place of honor. The halls of Hel will shine with his light. Yet make no mistake, he will come. No oath, no charm, no rune will keep him from my realm." Her words struck like ice, for Odin had long believed wisdom could shape destiny. But here, in the cold truth of Helheim, he realized that even knowledge had its limits. Prophecy was not a riddle to be solved, but a law to be endured. He saw in Hel's eyes not cruelty, but inevitability. Baldur's death was written, and with it the unraveling of the world. No sacrifice could shield his son, nor delay what must come. Odin bowed his head, heavy with sorrow yet resolute. "Then I shall not run from fate," he said. "If doom is certain, we shall face it with open eyes." Hel inclined her head, her voice soft yet unyielding. "So it is, and so it shall be." Turning back, Odin began his long walk from Helheim. The weight of inevitability pressing upon him. His quest for wisdom had brought many truths, but none so bitter as this. Even the All-Father could not escape the web of fate. Beyond the shining walls of Asgard, the Jotnar stirred. The giants of Jotunheim, long rivals of the gods, grew bold as whispers of Ragnarok spread. From icy peaks and shadowed valleys, they gathered their strength, sharpening blades of ice and stone. Odin, from Hlidskjalf, saw their fury rising like a storm. He knew the prophecies well. When giants marched, it would be the beginning of the end. Yet he also knew the gods could not strike first, for to do so would hasten doom. Instead, he prepared. The All-Father sent ravens far and wide, seeking knowledge of the giants' movements. He warned the Aesir, "Their anger grows. They are sharpening for war. We must be ready." Thor pounded his fist upon his hammer, eager for battle. But Odin's eye burned with caution. "Bravery is not enough," he said. "Wisdom must guide us, or we will fall before the first blow." In the halls of Jotunheim, Loki whispered among the giants, sowing both discord and resolve. Though once counted among the gods, his loyalty bent toward chaos. Odin watched his trickster-blooded son with suspicion, knowing that Loki's choices would shape the final war. The storm of giants was coming, and Odin's heart grew heavier with each passing day. Knowing war could not be avoided, Odin turned to the dwarves, the master smiths of the 9 realms. Deep within the mountains, where forges burned with unearthly fire, they crafted weapons not of mortal steel, but of enchanted might. Odin stood among them, his cloak dark against the glow of molten fire. Sparks flew like stars as the dwarves hammered, shaping blades that shimmered with runes of power. Each weapon bore not only strength, but destiny. For Thor, Mjolnir shone brighter than before, its hammerhead etched with new runes. For Freyr, a shining sword that could fight of its own will. For Heimdall, a horn whose call would awaken gods and men alike. And for Odin himself, a spear reforged, Gungnir, unerring in its flight, now blazing with deeper magic. The clang of iron and the hiss of steam filled the caverns. Odin spoke solemnly, "These are not weapons of conquest, they are shields against the storm to come. When the wolf breaks free, when the serpent stirs, these will be our last hope." The dwarves bowed, their faces shadowed by firelight. They had forged not just weapons, but the tools of fate. Odin took them in silence, for he knew they would not save him, but they might preserve what would rise after his fall. With weapons forged, Odin turned to another preparation, the gathering of warriors. From the battlefields of Midgard, he summoned the Valkyries, choosers of the slain. They came riding through storm and fire, maidens clad in shining armor, their steeds' hooves striking sparks against the clouds. Their voices rose in song, songs of death, glory, and eternal battle. Each verse called forth the souls of fallen warriors, guiding them to Valhalla, Odin's great hall. Odin watched from the gates as the Valkyries entered, bearing the bravest of the dead. These warriors, now the Einherjar, would feast by night and fight by day, sharpening their strength for Ragnarok. The clang of their swords rang like thunder in the hall, a chorus of steel and valor. The Valkyries bowed before Odin. "We have gathered the worthy, all. Father, when the final battle comes, they shall stand beside you." Odin's eye glimmered with both pride and sorrow. For though the halls of Valhalla swelled with might, he knew many of these warriors would fall again in the final war. He knew Hissinn war. Yet he also knew their courage would echo beyond death itself, giving strength to whatever world would rise anew. The Valkyries sang once more, their voices haunting and beautiful, a song that reached every corner of the 9 realms. Even the giants shuddered at its sound. Within the golden hall of Valhalla, the chosen dead, the Einherjar, feasted by night and battled by day. Their laughter echoed like thunder as they drank mead from endless horns, their plates refilled from the ever-living boar, Horimanir. But when the feasting ended, swords were raised, and the training began. Every dawn, the fields of Asgard resounded with the clash of steel. Warriors who had once fought as mortals now fought as immortals, their bodies healing with each death, their skill sharpening beyond human. Valkyries watched from the skies, guiding the fiercest blows, urging the warriors to fight with greater fury. Odin often stood at the edge of the fields, Gungnir in hand, his single eye blazing with pride and sorrow. He knew these warriors would fight at Ragnarok, and though their training would make them mighty, even they could not escape the fate woven by the Norns. Still, he prepared them, for courage in the face of doom was the greatest weapon of all. When night returned, the Einherjar feasted again, their wounds gone, their spirits lifted by song and drink. Yet in their hearts they knew why they trained, not for endless glory, but for the final day when all would be tested, when Valhalla swelled with warriors and the weapons of the gods gleamed anew. Odin summoned the Aesir to council. In the high hall of Gladsheim, the gods gathered, Thor with Mjolnir at his side, Freyr with his shining sword, Heimdall with Gjallarhorn, Frigg with sorrow in her eyes, and Loki lurking in the shadows. Odin rose, his cloak heavy, his spear blazing with runes. "My kin," he began. "The storm draws near. The giants sharpen their blades, Fenrir strains at his bonds, and the serpent stirs beneath the waves. We cannot escape what has been woven, but we can face it with courage. Thurther slammed his hammer upon the table. "Let them come, I will crush them all." But Odin raised his hand. "Bravery alone will not save us. We must be wise, united, and prepared. Ragnarok is not to be won, it is to be endured." Freya bowed his head, for he knew his sword would one day be lost. Heimdall lifted his horn, knowing he would sound it at the world's end. Loki smirked in silence, but Odin's eye caught him, burning with suspicion. When the council ended, silence lingered in the hall. Each god left knowing that their fate was sealed. Yet Odin's words gave them strength. Even if doom could not be stopped, they would not face it blindly. They would meet it with wisdom, courage, and honor, though bound in Gleipnir's silken chains. Fenrir did not rest. The monstrous wolf strained day and night, muscles bulging against the ribbon that held him. His growls rumbled across the realms, shaking mountains and chilling the hearts of gods and men. The Aesir dared not approach, save Tyr, who still bore the wound of sacrifice. Even he looked upon the beast with sorrow, knowing that one day Fenrir's hunger would not be contained. Odin often stood at a distance, Gungnir in hand, his single eye fixed upon the wolf. He knew this was no ordinary hunger. It was the hunger of destiny itself. Fenrir did not seek mere flesh but sought vengeance, freedom, and the fulfillment of prophecy. The wolf's eyes, blazing like coals, locked upon Odin's. A silent challenge passed between them, predator and prey, bound by fate. Odin turned away, but the weight of the vision clung to him. He knew that one day those jaws would close around him, and there would be no escape far below the waves of Midgard's oceans. Jormungandr, the world serpent, stirred. His coils stretched around the earth, encircling it in an endless embrace. For ages he had slumbered in the depths, but now he shifted, the waters trembling with his movements. Sailors whispered of storms without warning, waves rising like mountains, and venom bubbling upon the sea's surface. The gods felt it too, for every ripple of the serpent's stirring reached Yggdrasil's roots. Odin stood upon a cliff, his cloak whipped by sea winds, staring into the horizon. He could not see Jormungandr beneath the waves, but he could feel him, waiting, restless, destined to rise against Thor in the final battle. The All-Father's heart was heavy. He saw Thor's future in flashes, the clash of hammer and serpent, the thunder god triumphant, yet doomed by the venom's bite. The sea roared, as if mocking Odin's foresight. The serpent stirring was no longer just a rumor. It was the herald of Ragnarok's coming tide, still burdened by dread. Odin sought once more the counsel of a Versilever, a seeress of the dead. He traveled in secret, descending again into shadowed lands, and with runes and chants he awakened her spirit. The seeress rose, pale and trembling, her eyes clouded with visions. "Why disturb me again, Father?" she asked. Odin's voice was low but unyielding. "Tell me if there is hope. Tell me if fate may yet be bent." The seeress shuddered. "I have told you before, and still you will not listen. Doom is woven. Ragnarok comes. The wolf shall devour you. The serpent shall kill your son. Fire shall consume the heavens. Even the gods cannot escape." Odin's heart tightened. "Is there no light, no thread of hope?" The seeress's voice cracked, almost sorrowful. "There is rebirth after ruin. A new world shall rise, green and fair. But you, Odin, shall not see it. Your part is to fall, so others may rise." Her spirit faltered, fading into mist. Odin remained in silence, clutching Gungnir. He had gained the wisdom he sought, yet it was bitterer than any wound. Knowledge was not salvation. It was the certainty of doom. The nine realms trembled, as the first cracks of destiny began to split. The bonds that held chaos at bay, bonds forged of sacrifice, blood, and cunning, grew weak. In the caverns of Asgard, Gleipnir, the ribbon that bound Fenrir, quivered as though alive. The wolf's muscles rippled with power, and each growl shook the earth. His howls echoed across Yggdrasil, and even the gods grew restless, for they knew it would not hold forever. Beneath the seas, Jormungandr coiled and uncoiled, the waters rising in storms that drowned coastlines. His venom bubbled up, poisoning rivers and air, warning of his awakening. Deep in the underworld, Hel stirred upon her throne, her armies of the dead growing restless. And Loki, bound beneath the earth with venom dripping on his face, writhed in fury. His chains too strained, for his time to rise was near. Odin stood upon Hlidskjalf, his throne of sight, and felt the weight of each bond weakening. He knew the truth, the barriers would break, and when they did, the flood of chaos would pour forth. Though the gods still feasted in Valhalla, Odin's heart was heavy. He had prepared all he could, yet the sound of breaking bonds rang louder than any song of victory. Odin closed his eye and let the runes guide him once more. His spirit soared beyond Asgard, beyond Yggdrasil, into the fabric of fate itself. What he saw seared him to the core. He saw a sky darkened by smoke and fire. He saw giants marching from Jotunheim, their footsteps shaking the world. He saw Naglfar, the ship of the dead, carved from the nails of corpses, sailing forth with Loki at its helm. From Muspelheim came Surt, the fire giant, his flaming sword blazing brighter than the sun. He saw his beloved Baldur shining once more, but not in life. Instead, he stood as a promise for the world to come, after the fire had burned it clean. And finally, Odin saw himself. He stood upon a battlefield, spear raised high, facing the monstrous jaws of Fenrir. He saw the wolf leap, saw himself swallowed in a single snap, and in that moment, all went dark. The vision ended, and Odin gasped, sweat upon his brow. He knew it now with certainty. There was no escape, no trick nor sacrifice to alter what was woven. Yet even as dread gripped him, resolve steeled his spirit. "If this is my fate," he whispered to the stars, "then I will meet it standing." The dawn of the end came not with silence, but with a blast that shook the 9 realms. From Bifrost Saint, the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall raised Gjallarhorn to his lips. Its thunderous call echoed through the roots of Yggdrasil, reaching gods, giants, and mortals alike. The Einherjar sprang to their feet in Valhalla, swords raised, hearts burning. The Valkyries mounted their steeds, wings gleaming with fire, ready to lead them into the final war. The Aesir armed themselves, Thor with Mjolnir, Freyr with his shining sword, Heimdall with horn and blade, and Odin with Gungnir, his run spear blazing. Across the realms the enemies stirred. From the seas rose Jormungandr, waves crashing against the earth. From Jotunheim the giants marched, their steps shaking the mountains. From Muspelheim came Surt, fire spilling from his sword, his flames consuming the sky. And from the underworld sailed Naglfar, the ship of the dead, Loki at its helm, his eyes burning with betrayal. The bridge of Bifrost Saint trembled under the weight of armies. The heavens darkened, the earth quaked, and even the stars seemed to shudder. Odin lifted Gungnir high. "The hour has come. Stand fast, my kin. Today we do not fight for life, but for the honor of facing the end with open eyes." The gods roared in answer, their voices joining the thunder of Gjallarhorn. Ragnarok had begun. The 2 armies met in a roar that shook the cosmos. From Asgard surged the Aesir and the Einherjar, blades flashing, shields clashing, their battle cries echoing like thunder. From Jotunheim came the giants, towering figures of frost and stone, their weapons vast as mountains. Fire poured from Muspelheim as Surtur's host blazed across the fields, turning the air itself into flame. Thresher charged forward, Mjolnir cracking with lightning, each blow scattering giants like leaves in a storm. Freyr raised his shining sword, striking down foes with blinding arcs of light. Heimdall fought at Odin's side, his horn now silenced, his blade flashing bright. Valkyries swooped from the skies, their lances piercing the enemy ranks, rallying the Einherjar to fury. Yet the giants did not falter. For every one who fell, two more pressed forward. The earth cracked under their march, rivers boiled, and the heavens burned. In the distance, Naglfar crashed upon the shore, disgorging legions of the dead led by Loki's mocking laughter. Odin's voice rose above the din. "Stand fast! This is our hour!" His words carried across the battlefield, steadying the hearts of gods and warriors alike. The clash was not battle alone. It was the unraveling of the world. Each strike, each cry, was a note in the final song of creation. And though Odin fought with all his might, his eye never left the horizon, where Fenrir waited in the shadows. Amid the chaos of battle, Odin's eye sought only one foe. Across the smoke and flame, Fenrir broke free, Gleipnir shattering like dust. The monstrous wolf rose, larger than mountains, his jaws stretching wide enough to swallow the sky. His growl silenced the battlefield, for all knew this was the hour foretold. Odin rode forth upon Sleipnir, his eight-legged steed, cloak billowing like storm clouds. In his hand gleamed Gungnir, the runed spear, its tip blazing with divine light. Behind him, the Valkyries cried out, and the Einherjar surged forward to shield their All-Father. But Fenrir's fury was unstoppable. He tore through warriors like leaves in a gale, his teeth snapping shields and steel alike. The ground shook beneath his stride, fire and venom dripping from his maw. Odin faced him alone, his voice rising above the din. "Come then, beast of doom! If fate has woven this hour, I will not flee from it." He spurred Sleipnir forward, Gungnir raised high, as Fenrir leapt to meet him. Wolf and god clashed in a storm of fury. The All-Father against the jaws of destiny. The clash was titanic. Odin hurled Gungnir with all his strength, the rund spear striking true. Yet even its magic could not pierce fate. Fenrir snapped the shaft in his teeth and lunged. Sleipnir reared, but the wolf was faster. With a roar that shook the realms, Fenrir's jaws closed around Odin. The Allfather struggled, his strength unmatched, yet prophecy was stronger still. From afar, the gods cried out in anguish. Thor struck giants as if to carve a path to his father. But he was held by Jormungandr. Heimdall clashed with Loki, their blades singing with fury. Freya faced Surt in a storm of flame. Yet none could reach Odin in time. In the maw of the wolf, Odin vanished. His spear fell shattered upon the earth, his cloak torn, his voice silenced. The battlefield trembled, for the All-Father had fallen, but in that final moment, Odin did not despair. He had known this fate since the day he plucked out his eye, since the runes carved themselves into his soul. His death was not defeat. It was the sacrifice that would give birth to what came after. Fenrir howled in triumph, but his victory was short-lived. For vengeance was near, the battlefield lay in ruin. Fenrir had devoured Odin. Thor slew Jormungandr, but fell to its venom. Loki and Heimdall. Loki and Heimdall lay dead by each other's blades, and Surt raised his flaming sword to set the world ablaze. Fire consumed the 9 realms. The seas boiled, the sky cracked, Yggdrasil groaned as its roots trembled. All seemed lost. Yet from the ashes came silence, and from silence renewal. The flames faded, leaving a world reborn. Green fields spread where fire had raged. Rivers ran clear again, and the sunless light returned brighter than before. From the shadows of destruction, a few gods emerged. Balder returned from hell, radiant once more, his presence a promise of hope. Huginn, his brother, stood beside him in reconciliation. The sons of Thor lifted Mjolnir, carrying their father's thunder into a new age. Humanity, too, rose again, survivors walking upon fertile ground. Though Odin was gone, his wisdom remained, etched in runes, carried in stories, and whispered in the winds of the new world. His sacrifice was not in vain, for through his fall came rebirth. The all-father's quest for wisdom was complete. It had led him not to the preservation of his own life, but to the survival of all that would follow. The cycle of death and renewal had turned, and from the twilight of the gods came the dawn of a new world. And so the saga of Odin, the All-Father, reaches its destined end. From sacrifice to sacrifice, from runes to prophecy, from triumphs of cunning to the inevitability of doom, his path was never one of glory alone. It was a path of wisdom, hard-won, bitterly kept, and ultimately given to shape the world beyond his fall. Odin sought knowledge not for himself alone, but for all who would come after. He plucked out his eye, hung upon Yggdrasil, and drank of both pain and vision, knowing each step carried him closer to his fate. And though the wolf claimed his life, his wisdom endured, etched into the fabric of the new world, carried in the voices of gods, men, and stories yet to be told. From the twilight of the gods rose renewal, and through Odin's sacrifice, hope was born anew. This is his legacy, that wisdom demands a price, but from that price comes strength beyond death and light beyond shadow. Thank you, brave traveler, for walking this journey. May Odin's quest remind us all that even in the face of fate, courage and wisdom can carve a dawn beyond the darkest night.